Hi, it's Brenda Wood, and I'm here with Brian Rooney, and he has done over 11 years, and he's going to tell us a little bit about his time served, what his background was like, and of course, what he's doing now. But first, I would like to reach out to anybody that's watching and say that no matter who you are and what your past is like, you still have a value and you can still make a difference. So with that, Brian, tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, basically, do you want the prison or just my background?
Let's talk about before. Yep, your education, what your
Yeah.
childhood might have been like.
I was actually adopted at three days old, which is that's another story in itself because I actually met my mother in prison in 2018, which is that's a totally different story. My biological mother contacted me. Um, Grew up in a working class home. It wasn't honestly, it wasn't pleasant. I mean, there was a lot of abuse, on all levels. It wasn't. I didn't really grow up in a great household. There was a lot of conflict, between my parents. My sister was adopted as well. Um, Grandparents passed early on. They were my main support, but they ended up passing at an early age. So I did get in trouble as a juvenile. Obviously, I mean I'd been in the juvenile system for insubordination, which is basically not doing what my parents asked, which that's a totally different story in itself. So I didn't graduate high school I ended up getting my GED down the road, but I ended up going to college down the road. Went to George Mason University. This is actually before I got incarcerated. So I was going to college, I was working and everything, fell upon some financial hardship and took the route that I took. And, met up with another individual who had a criminal background history, and I was in a financial crunch, and I was basically like, I got to come up with some money. I'm thinking about dealing drugs. I don't know what to do. I did, and it was like, oh, we can, this is what I do. And I fell into that lifestyle of easy money, fast living, and everything else, and ended up going to prison over it.
So you went to prison in the state of Virginia. Tell me what it was like when you got indicted.
Yes, ma'am.
Process. What was the process when you got indicted? What was that like?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I knew. Well, it was basically I knew that the gig was up. My co-defendant, he ended up getting caught and ended up telling on me, which led me under investigation, everything else. But basically, I was on bond and I ran, and that was stupid, obviously. But I ended up taking off because I knew I was going to prison, and I was like, there's no way around it. There was too much evidence. There was too much testimony against me and stuff like that. I ended up getting caught 7 months later. The woman I was staying with at the time, they kicked in her door and drugged me out of the house and had warrants for my arrest, took me to the jail. Now I will say this, I wasn't new to the justice system. I'd been in trouble earlier, in my life in my 20s. I didn't do the extensive amount of time that I'd done this time, but I did a few years kind of, in jail and went to like a road camp. I got out, thought I'd learned my lesson and everything. But my mind hadn't changed, and we could talk about that, down the road. Like my mindset was, oh, well, and I blame it on my youth and stupidity and stuff like that. But I mean, as years down the road, when that attitude carries on, it's hard to break that cycle.
Yes, it is. You said you preach responsibility, so you
Right.
tell me a little bit about your feelings on that and incarceration.
Well, I look at it like this. Rarely on social media, in my opinion, do I hear about personal responsibility. And it honestly, it bothers me because here's the deal. Um, we're not the victims. We're not if you look at, the whole situation, like I hurt my family, which ruined my relationships with family, friends, loved ones, people who believed in me. I had a mentor who gave me a full ride scholarship to college, and I blew that. And there's, to me, personal responsibility is saying, hey, look, this is the situation I put myself in. I got out of it. I paid my price. Now, do I think that everybody should receive extensive and harsh sentences? No, I don't. Of course not, because it's a waste of time, in my opinion.
Mhm.
But if you can't admit to what you've done, and that doesn't mean you have to go tell the cops, or you don't have to tell on yourself or whatever, but when it's all said and done, you have to take personal responsibility for what you did. What brought me to this point in my life that is going to, what's going to change? And from my personal experience, I've seen too many people in there whining, crying, excuses, minimizing. That's fine and dandy. We already know that the prison system is messed up. I never thought I was going to be going to a country club. I'm there with people who have, done brutal murders and rapes and stuff like that. But guess what? I was a thief. That's what I tell people. Look, I was an ex-thief who didn't care about your property. I didn't care about your money. I didn't care how I got it. I didn't care how I got it, what I did. And so it's not like, oh, I'm a nonviolent, criminal. No, you were a thief. And that's what you were. And believe it or not, like over those 11 and a half years, I had mentors. I had people who 100% told me like it was. And I needed to hear that in my own life, because I was one of those people who was making excuses. Well, what happened was, no, the bottom line is you have to be honest with yourself, and you have to figure out, okay, now I'm in prison. How am I going to use my time wisely? How am I going to get from point A to point C? Well, I've got to go through point B, which is the prison process, to get my freedom and never make the same choices that I made prior to that. And that to me is like this. Personal responsibility is also healing for yourself, because it's saying, look, I messed up. Forgive me. I apologize for what I've done. I'll make amends, whatever it is. But it's saying, give me another chance, because I'm owning up to what I did.
Mhm.
So
So
that's where I stand on it.
talk to me about your time in prison, the process when you were
Sure.
first brought in. Did you self-report, or did you, well, you weren't out on bond because, well, you were, but you got brought back in because you fled. So you probably didn't get back out. So
Right.
you got to do the whole Con
Yeah,
Air
I
thing
didn't.
and be shipped out.
Yeah. Right.
But talk to me about prison. What's the worst thing you saw?
Oh, God. Uh, Stabbings, beat downs, assaults on the regular. You hear about, people talk about sexual assault and stuff. I mean, there were cases, but not like California, New York, some of the more dangerous prison systems or whatever. The level of violence. And don't get me wrong, I mean, people always say, well, nonviolent, violent. Look, anybody can be violent. I was violent in prison. I've been into fights and you have to defend yourself, and you have to do whatever, it takes to get through your time. And I tell people that prison is a violent atmosphere. That's what it is. It's a bunch, think about it like this. You have to deal with 1,000 different people on a daily basis, different attitudes, different, whether it's COs, whether it's the prisoners, whether it's, and you've got to deal with your own stuff. So yeah, I mean, look, I've been to level 2s up to level 5s. Level 5s are supermax prisons where, as you can imagine, gang violence, just the everyday violence, the everyday interactions. But I mean, as far as war stories, yeah, I've got 1,000 of them. I mean, I've seen some things that, you tell some people out here and they're like, their jaw drops, because you're like, I never thought as a human being I would ever see something like A, B, and C. To see a man, get stabbed and cry out for help, and you can't help the man, because if you do, then you're dead. So
Right.
I mean, it's just, it's some of those things where, it's mentally going to affect you for the rest of your life. To me, it is. I mean, you could be out here 10 years, but every now and then, those memories are going to come back, or something's going to set you off, And remember, prison was a horrible experience. Okay, honestly, I mean, from the jail to the prison experience, it was a terrible experience to me. It was just a waste of time.
Do
Because
you
see,
feel that you feel that you have not been rehabilitated then? Not in a sense that you haven't changed, but while you were in prison, what did they do to help you succeed on the outside?
absolutely nothing. No, no, absolutely nothing. See, and that's what you and I were talking about earlier about, when I started my network, because I was like, there is limited help for anybody. I mean, look, you've seen it yourself. I've seen it where it's like, when you see a man leave prison with nothing and leaves with a tent, I mean, you're not going to make it. I hate to tell you that. I mean, he was asking everybody like, hey, how do you commit this kind of crime? Or how do you commit this? Or how do you, but as far as like the rehabilitative efforts, there are none. 94 to 95% of all prisoners are going to be released within their lifetime. If this doesn't cause concern to society, to the politicians, to the Department of Justice, then I don't know what will, because basically what you're saying is with that number of people being released, 94, 95% within your lifetime, and you're not preparing these people, well, to me, you've shown where you stand. It's either, like you said, make money, keep you incarcerated, keep you down. And, to me, that was like the worst thing. And I've seen, look, I've had a lot of buddies go back, had a couple of people commit suicide, had, a couple of people say, hey, man, like I can't deal with it out here.
I've heard a
So,
lot of stories about the suicide being mentioned, either
of
in
course,
prison when they're facing a lot of time,
that's
embarrassed
right.
about what they've done and what's going on with their family. And
That's
then
right.
again, when they get out, because they just have no help, they don't feel that they have anywhere to go. So
That's
talk
right.
to me about your support system while you were in there. Did you have family to help you,
Um,
friends, or were you by yourself?
well, I'll tell you one thing. I mean, in the beginning, I didn't have anybody. I burnt my bridges, especially when I ran. Everybody I mean, we're pretty much, done with you and stuff like that. Now, over the years, my wife wrote me in the jail because we used to know each other, and she wrote me. Um, a couple people did, throughout the years. I mean, there were a couple people, but I was like, I'm not going to make it out here if I don't have support, if I don't have, and I was in the stage where it was like, I don't want to come back. I haven't even left yet, and I don't want to come back.
Mhm.
But
Did
how
you
is
have a
this going
job?
to happen? Excuse me.
Did you have a job?
Yeah, I worked, I mean, various jobs. I mean, I've done everything from cleaning toilets to cleaning showers to working in the library.
Mhm.
Because my thing was, see, I was under the old laws. So to earn good time, like, we didn't do 85% of our time. You could do 20% up to 100% if you messed up based on your good time. So a job was mandatory for us, and it basically the pay stunk, which we all know that. But I mean, as far as the good time, yeah, I worked the entire time.
Okay. So what was your hustle while you were in there? Everybody has a hustle.
I mean, to be honest with you, I didn't, but my thing was like helping people like get their GEDs, help people, learn how to read, write. Um, so it was a legal hustle, but it was still, I mean, it was still it was still a need. Some people deal drugs, some people run parlay tickets, sports, whatever. But my thing was, how are we going to make a difference in here? Because believe it or not, somebody set me straight on the inside. An old timer, I'm writing a blog about it. This old guy named JW, and he said, one day you're going to wake up and you're going to realize exactly what you did to hurt those, and you're going to face the reality of your consequences. And I said, whatever, I don't want to hear that, and that day came. And, you have to face the realization that, look, I'm no angel. Obviously, I'm here for a reason. I'm not here because, I made mistakes or whatever people want to call them. I made criminal choices that landed me here, and I don't want to be here, in here anymore. And what am I going to do to get out? And that should be a crucial question for everybody in there, is like, how am I going? Okay, we know that there's no support. We know that there's no anybody really to step in. So you've got to make your own kind of mark. Look, no one helped me get a job. No one helped me get a job. No one helped me get my ID. I mean, my wife drove me there, but I mean, she didn't know what to tell me. She was like, hey, this is how I got mine, but your situation's different. So you have to learn these things once you're out, but you got to prepare while you're in
What
there.
was it like finding a job when you got out?
Scary, beyond scary, because put it like this, okay? And you were gone for a while, and it's like you're gone for 11 and a half years. Not only am I in a new state that I've never been in, so I mean, it was scary. I mean, my work ethic's there. I've gotten raises, promotions, I've gotten stuff like that, but you always have the fear of people finding out. You always have the fear of what if they fire me because they know about my record, or what if I don't have this job, or what if I don't have A, B, and C? So I mean, it's constant pressure. But the interview process, imagine that. You've been gone for all that time, and you're sitting in front of somebody, and you got to put on your best face. And that's it was a scary situation. But I mean, it's slowly kind of going away.
Now, for you guys out there, Brian kind of skimmed over. He got married while he was in prison. He knew his wife
Yeah.
beforehand, and then they started writing, and then they got married while he
Right.
was in there. And then he was released to the state of Virginia, but because his wife lived in Michigan,
Right.
he had to put in for a transfer to go from the
Right.
state of Virginia to now be on parole in the state of Michigan. So
Right.
when he talks about these things, this is what happened. How hard was it to get married inside?
It is, but it's kind of one of those things where and I think that my wife and I have discussed it, when she said, I would have married you in a dumpster. Doesn't matter where you marry somebody. It's if you love them and if you believe in them and if you've been, it's difficult because you only get a limited amount of time, to have your wedding and everything, and then you're gone. It's tough, but I think it was also kind of like the catalyst of my change, because it was like, look, not only are you responsible for yourself, but you're responsible for somebody else. Somebody believes in you. Somebody takes their time. Somebody is dedicated to you, and frankly, you owe them. That's what it is. It's not like oh, I guess I'll do it or whatever. It's you want to because you love that person, and it's a unique story. I mean, we got married and just but we've been together ever since. Then I met my mom, down the road. So I mean, it was a lot of hardship and pain, but there was also a lot of blessings at the end that really just kind of opened up my eyes to a whole new life.
Now, you said
And
you
I'm
served,
grateful for it.
absolutely, and you should be. You said you served a little over 11 years. So,
Right.
what was your total sentence?
It was 39 years, 26 months, and 5 days. Okay. Now my sentence though was under the old law. Okay, because I had done time before. So it's basically like anything after 95, you're sentenced to 85% of you have to do 85% of your time. If you committed a crime before then, you're essentially going to be under the old law, like if you have any backup time and stuff like that. Now, I did gain some new charges, obviously, when I ran, and with my criminal record and everything, but it tallies up fast. I ended up probably doing what, 30%, a little bit over 30% of my time. So,
How did that happen?
as far as
Going from 39 years down to 11. How did that
here,
happen?
okay, well, here's how it goes. Okay, when you're under the parole system in Virginia, okay, like for instance, like when you go to jail, they depending on the length of time, they give you your state number while you're in there. So basically, it's like this: you earn 20 days for every 30 you do. Now, 10 days goes towards parole, then 10 days goes towards your mandatory date. Okay, but the max you can receive is every 30 days you serve, you gain 30 days, which I don't know why they do that. Now I mean, when they talk about cleaning up the population and everything, It'd be easy to do. Do old law, good time, 30 days, for every 30 you serve with no parole. That ends the problem.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to release tens of thousands of people without the, responsibility of, oh, that person, we gave him parole, he violated, let's go ahead, and it comes back on them. This way, everybody's covered. So what had happened was you have to do I think it's 20% of your time before you go up for parole. So I eventually, I went up for parole. I think after 7 years, it was 7 years and maybe a month or something like that. And I ended up, getting turned down 3 or 4 times and ended up making my fifth.
Okay.
Fourth.
So now you're out.
Right.
You're working. You're trying to do better. Talk to me about the changed Brian.
Well, honestly, I just don't make excuses anymore. Everything to me was a justification. Everything, I mean, I could hit your car from behind in a car wreck. Well, she stopped. It was the mind frame of I was a victim. Look, we all have a story, okay? We all do, and it's not taken away from people who are truly victims, okay? We see this every single day. But the bottom line is, I'm the one that made the choices. I'm the one that committed the criminal acts. I'm the one. Now, hey, if you're innocent, hey, I can't really relate to that, but you shouldn't be in prison. We all know that. I don't believe in the death penalty. I don't believe in life without parole. I don't believe in that. I don't believe that these certain measures work. But as far as me personally, it was being honest with myself. It was saying, look, you put yourself in here. Now you have your family, you have your mother, you have a wife, you have responsibilities, you've got to live life. This just isn't about you anymore. And as well as I know, look, I could have easily walked away from prison reform, easily. Put prison away from me entirely, forget it or whatever, but it kind of eats at you after a while. Look, I had to set myself straight. I had to have plenty of mentors, networking with other people who were look, that's not the way life works out here. And that was a hard reality, but the reality was I was imprisoned. Who was I to argue with you if you're telling me and you're free? This is not acceptable out here. And for years of my life, I thought it was acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, they've got insurance. Oh, well, even if we stole 10 grand, whatever. Oh, they've got insurance. Who cares? We're poor. So why don't we just go ahead, and it was just excuse after excuse after excuse. Look, here would be my message to people on the inside. Life is tough out here. Everybody, this. Everybody assumes that once you get out of prison, that life is glorious and it is tough out here. You got to pay bills. Some of you, we didn't really do on the inside. You got to pay bills. You've got to build bridges. You've got to feel that sense of normalcy that once you get out, how am I going to adapt out here? Hey, look, my wife had to tell me a couple times, you're not in prison anymore. I've had a few episodes out here where, and you kind of go back into prison mode and it's look, you're not in prison anymore. You're free. Start acting like it. Stop acting like,
Let's talk about that. You're free because you're not behind the wall, but you're really not free, are you? Talk to me about parole and what goes on.
Look, you're never going to be free until you're off. You know that. I know that. I mean, look, I've had so many ups and downs with parole and probation. I mean, it's just, it's just, you're never going to be free until you're off. Okay. And that's my point. Look, just because we're in prison and we're incarcerated, when you get out here, you've got to, be responsible. You've got to uphold the conditions to parole and probation. You have to answer to somebody else who's willing to throw you back in at any second.
Mm-hmm.
Any second. I mean,
especially if they have a personal thing against you, or they don't like the crime you did or your personality.
Of course. Now, I will say that, a lot of people, people who are on the registry, people who are on, parole or probation for the rest of their life. To me, it's when's enough? I mean, honestly, I've served my time. I'm making amends through financial restitution now. I've been punished beyond, what most have. Now, it was my fault, okay, and I understand that, but there also have to be some significant changes, not only in the system, but for those once they get out. If those opportunities aren't there, we're wasting our breath. That's what we're doing.
Yes.
That's what I'm telling people. Like, look, like for instance, everybody says, "Hey, let's release everybody." Well, that's kind of cruel because a lot of people don't have anywhere to go.
Right.
A lot of people are going to hit the streets. So my thing is, why don't we focus on resources for uh, halfway houses, programs for when they get out, job training, interview, whatever. Because on the inside, you're not going to get that. So it's like you're going from one door to another and you've got to figure it out without preparation. It's almost impossible. It really is.
Do you feel that felons get judged for the rest of their life?
Of course. Of course they do. I mean, look, I'm going to tell you something, okay? I've been out for a while and I've been doing everything that I'm supposed to do. But you still get the looks. You still get the, granted, my wife's family, they've accepted me, but my mother has, but there's family members I haven't even met yet, who were like, because of COVID, obviously, and everything that, kind of went down, but it's still, you're going to be judged for the rest of your life until you can show that, hey, look, people could see through your actions. And to me, that's all I see is a bunch of talk. I mean, like, I know we're on social media and I know that we're on, but it's like, look, I can't sit around and hobnob with politicians for people who love incarceration. I can't do that myself. Okay. I would love to ask them 1,000 questions and ask why they do, but I know why they do it. It's to keep us incarcerated and make money. That's what it is.
It is about money. They are a
Of course,
corporation and they are for profit.
but let me ask you something. I mean, put it like this. My mentor on the inside told me he was never getting out. Matter of fact, he died. I'm writing a piece on this. He died like right before I got out, but he was never getting out of prison. But he took the time to sit down and talk to people and say, look, if this is the life you want, you're going to keep repeating the same behavior, the same attitudes, and that leads to criminal behavior. But he said, look, I was guilty. And this man killed like 13 people and had to go to the feds after he was done and had over 2,000 years. 2,000 years.
That's crazy.
So he basically he was like, look, get out here, help others, do the best that you can. Don't make the same mistakes you made.
Yes, and that's very good advice. I understand life sentences and I understand their reasoning behind it, but 2,000 years, I mean, that just doesn't make sense because a person is never going to live that long. So
That's right.
Just call it life, or 99 years or something like that.
Of course. Well, it's a political statement for the public. Look, we're tough on crime. We gave this guy 2,000 years. He's got life in the feds, and that's what it is. It's to appeal to the public. Now the public's kind of starting to realize, wait a minute, this isn't working. And it's not working. We all, I mean, look how they're handling the COVID. Look how, I mean, look, I pray every day and thankful that I'm out of prison because all that's going on the inside now, it's a death trap. That's what it is. You're stuck in there, you're locked down, and eventually, I mean,
you can't get away from it.
You can't get away from it. So,
and
it's like, that's right. Well, I mean, you know how a prison is. You could break your leg and they're going to give you an aspirin or an ibuprofen and charge you $5 for it. That's what they used to do in Virginia.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And with a broken leg, you got to stand in the pill call line to go get it.
Yeah. And, I mean, look, it's to me, prison has its good points as far as, will that be the catalyst of you changing? That's what it comes down to. But as far as the abuse, the treatment that we received, no rehabilitation, you can't call it a justice system and then say, hey, you know what, after you've done 11 and a half years, after you've done 4 years, 2 years, I don't care if it's a day. You're supposed to be able to say, hey, look, I messed up. Let me make amends and let me get my life back on track. And they just make it very difficult for us.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
And then the public makes it difficult when you get out.
Of course.
So to wind this up, what would you tell the average person that has not been incarcerated, that does not have a family member or friend or any association with the incarceration process at all, what could you tell them about your life as a felon that you would want to educate them about? And not necessarily as your life as a felon, but your life now being a
Right.
prior crime committer.
Well, I'd look at it like this. First of all, I preach to everybody, don't commit crime. I mean, like, honestly, like, look, we're all going to be in a bad spot in our lifetime. It's how we react to it. Life isn't perfect out here, but don't go the route where you're going to put yourself in a situation where you're going to regret it for the rest of your life. Look, I may be free. I've got more regret than probably the most average person. I don't always voice it and stuff, but internally you're thinking, where'd all those years go? I'm 50 years old now.
Mm-hmm.
50. And I tell people, like, look, especially the younger generation, it's not worth it. Invest that time into school, into work, into whatever you want. But look, you don't have to resort to that route because it's going to cost you in the end. Actions have consequences. And I pray, and I seriously, this is the God honest truth, I don't want anybody to go to prison. I mean, to me, it is the most disappointing thing that a person, could ever put themselves through and go through. It's terrible.
Well, I appreciate your time today, and I appreciate your comments, and I really appreciate that you're trying to change, that you have
Yeah,
changed, and you're
yeah,
continuing to move down that road forward to live a life that is of freedom, of course,
that's
but
right.
of not as a thief. That you have
That's right.
made
That's
a
right.
change, and you're trying to move on with your life. And
That's right.
people need to understand that people can change. Not only can they change, they want to change. And there's some that won't. I'm not saying that they
Right.
will.
Of course. Of course.
People who want to, I think we need to give them that chance and let us show them what they can do. So
I agree.
if
I
people want to
100% agree
come
with
to
you.
you, how can they get in touch with you?
Look, you can contact me. You can go on Twitter. It's Real Prison Issues, or you can contact me via email. You can go to prisonsocialnetwork@gmail.com. You can drop me a line if you have any questions or concerns. Or believe me, I get a lot of hate mail. A lot of people, forget you or whatever, But I'm like, hey, you know what? That's just par for the course. You said, let's all make a change. We can all do it together. 100%. That there should be a positive change to the prison experience. And it's got to start from day one.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us. I appreciate it. All righty.
All right. You take care.
Yeah.